Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out.
All right.
Hi, everybody. It's Tim Hagen from Coaching Conversations podcast. Today we have Julie Winkle Giulioni, and I said her name correctly. I practiced for 5 minutes before we got online. Hey, Julie, how are you?
I'm well, Tim. How are you?
Good, good. Tell us about the book that you're about to publish.
Oh, I am so excited. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, March 8th through ATD Press, and it's kind of a sequel, I think, to my first book, Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, Career Conversations was the focus of that one. And I always felt like I wanted to take it to that next step, because despite the fact that managers, leaders might feel more comfortable having conversations, what I hear time and again is, but what do I do when my people want promotions? Because after all, that's all they're after. They just want that next promotion. I don't have it. So where do I take that conversation? And so this book is really the playbook for where you take that conversation, because there are countless other ways to help people grow if we redefine career development.
So why are promotions so yesterday?
Well, how much time do you have? Because there's a lot that's changed in the workplace. I mean, you look at the workplace and it is vastly different. The last 2 years, the last 10 years, certainly in the last 25 years, we've had downsizing, right sizing, outsourcing. We've got boomers who until recently were living longer, working longer, occupying spaces on that org chart that newer talent kind of had their eyes on. Work is getting done more organically. There's less of a hierarchical format and more, how do we organize ourselves around what customers need or new product lines, that kind of thing. And then now, more recently, as organizations have gone virtual, and what did I just read? I think 18% of organizations are only hiring remote employees now. So we've got now those geographical boundaries that used to offer more opportunity for folks who were close to the center of the organization. Now those boundaries are gone, and the whole world, is open up, and there's more competition for those few promotions. So the workplace is different. The external landscape is different, but the internal landscape is different too. We're changing. The last 2 years have changed us profoundly. We've got folks who, have kind of an experience economy mentality. We've got the gig and the side hustle work that folks are doing, and employees want more from their work. They want their jobs to do a different set of jobs for them. It's not just about showing up for the paycheck and the promotion. In fact, we're seeing people walk away from very well-paying jobs because they're looking for something else. And so continuing to define career development in terms of these promotions is out of sync with the reality that most of us are living today.
Well, it's interesting because two and a half years ago, the number one question, I forget the study, was asked by candidates was, do you provide mentoring or coaching, which is kind of my field. Now the number one question is, do you provide flexible workplace environment? which is really a big swing. You said 16, 18%, but what is it? 40 to 50% of people are looking for jobs outside of their current job because of workplace flexibility.
Absolutely. And making decisions based on that as a primary focus. And so the terms, the rules of the game have entirely changed. And yet, for whatever reason, we keep sort of rubber banding back as leaders and managers to these old pictures, these old assumptions, these old expectations that just don't conform with today's environment.
Yeah. So when you think about some of the risks and challenges associated with careers today, defining careers, what are some of the things that come to your mind and what could you educate our audience on?
Well, I think the risks in many cases are exactly what we're seeing in the workplace. We're seeing folks who are not feeling that they're getting the growth, the development, the learning that they're looking for. And they've got lots of options today. And they're taking their talent somewhere that will offer what those priorities are. There are a couple of statistics. You know these probably better than I. 94% of employees say they'd stay longer if they felt like the organization was investing in them. And just recently, I read employees who don't perceive growth opportunities are 7.9 times more eager to leave, even if they like their job. We're talking about people who aren't unhappy, who are perfectly happy where they are. But if they don't feel like that opportunity to grow exists, they're going to hightail it out. And the really unfortunate thing is that it's all about definitions. What is growth and how are we defining that?
So what are some of the things in terms of, talking to individuals or leaders or organizations, what are some alternative ways for people to think about careers and career development now? Because all of the insight that you just shared is so interesting because it's really kind of a whirlwind for organizations today to get their arms around it because there is so much change going on in terms of the psyche of the employee today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so much going on in terms of change within the psyche of the individual. And we're continuing to hold ourselves back into the past. So many of us have bought into this really limited definition. Careers, that is your role, your title, what they call you, the place that you sit. And career development is the promotion and the trajectory that gets you there. And, so we continue to measure success by these artificial markers, despite the fact that, as we've talked about, employees are looking for so much more than that. And so we set ourselves up by defining career development in this small way. And let's just deal with the mathematical reality of it. There are not enough promotions to give to everyone who wants to grow and develop.
Right.
It just doesn't work like that. It's the organizations or pyramids or pinheads it just doesn't work that way. And so we keep perpetuating the expectation, though, through the conversations that we have with folks, through talking about career development as, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And of course, the flaw in that is, where is anything going to be in 3 to 5 years?
Right.
When you look at the delta between today and 3 years ago, who would have expected it? And the Institute for the Future of Work tells us that by the year 2030, the jobs we'll be doing there, 85% of them don't exist today. They haven't been invented. And so we keep funneling people down pathways that may or may not lead anywhere. They're setting up these expectations that are out of sync with what we can deliver. And to be honest, they're out of sync with what a lot of employees are looking for. And so, I frequently say careers have changed and career development just hasn't quite kept up. So it's time to expand the definition and introduce kind of a new language around this that is more contemporary and more in keeping with what managers and employees can actually accomplish.
Do you feel like some of the employees today, And I've made the analogy in my work that people have gone from offense to defense with their careers. In the last 2 years, moms and dads are staying home with their kids. Are they going being homeschooled? Are they going to be on the bus? How many do we have bandwidth with Zoom and all those good things? And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, people have almost forgotten what their own goals and motivations were, or they certainly have changed. Have you seen that?
Oh, absolutely. That expression, COVID epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
These last 2 years of hunkering down, taking care of the family, having the experience of working in isolation, having the experience, of seeing your kids grow and develop in front of your eyes in a way that you couldn't in those previous years when we were all at the office from 8 to 5 or beyond. So absolutely, I think some folks have moved into more of an offensive role, though, because the marketplace, the labor marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
is such that it's a seller's game, if you will. The employees, the power dynamic has certainly shifted in a way that gives the employee looking for a job a lot more options as well. And then others of us, I think, have used this time also to really think about what's important.
Right.
Fundamentally, what's my relationship with work going to be? If I'm going to be putting 40, 60, 80 hours in a week, what do I need to get back?
Yeah.
Paycheck and that promotion, that's just not enough for the trade-offs.
Yeah. Well, one of our last questions I want to ask you is, you created, so define for our audience the multidimensional career development framework, and define that for us, or give us an explanation. And how did you go about creating that?
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to share this with folks because it really paints such a helpful and a hopeful picture for managers and leaders who want to help people grow and just don't know how to go about doing it. So over the last 10 years or so, I've been doing field research and talking with hundreds, thousands of people about what career means to them, how they want to grow. And so much of what I heard did not square with that picture of everybody wants a promotion.
Mm-hmm.
The more I heard, quickly patterns began to emerge. And I identified these 8 dimensions, ways that people could grow. And I knew that they were viable because they came from real people. These were their words. But when it came right down to it, I wasn't certain how valuable all of these dimensions would be if it was just kind of happy talk, the right thing to say. And so we did some research. We did a validation study of over 700 people worldwide and just asked them to take these 8 dimensions and rank order them. What are you most interested in right now? And what was stunning to me, the results, they couldn't have been more surprising. The most important dimension, the way people wanted to grow and develop right now, most important is contribution.
Mm.
Then it was competence. So contribution is all about, stepping up, making a difference, tapping that need to be of service. But it's not just about giving. I mean, we can consciously contribute and also be learning and growing and taking something back for ourselves if we're intentional about it. So contribution was number 1. Second was competence. And that makes sense. People know the world's changing fast. And if we're not changing with it, it's going to be easy to fall behind. Then there was connection. And there's that expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It certainly applies to a certain extent in career development. But building those relationships, networks, communities, the visibility, the learning with and through others is profound. Confidence, which is not normally part of kind of a career framework, but 70% of us are going to experience that imposter syndrome at some point during our careers. And lack of confidence, I know for myself personally, inhibited what I was able to do at certain points in my career. And it does the same for others. And so there are certain times when we've got to just double down on getting really clear on our value proposition, knowing assuredness around, are going to deliver in a predictable way, in a consistent fashion. So that's what confidence is all about. Challenge, that's kind of face value. That was next, the ability to step up into more complex, difficult situations, because it's really in the discomfort zone where the learning and the growth happen. Next was contentment. And again, not normally part of a career framework. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, Tim, we're going to be working for 40, 50 years, younger folks, new talent to the workplace, perhaps even longer. It can't be a sprint. We've got to prepare ourselves for a marathon here. And so sometimes the best step forward is kind of taking a step back.
Yeah.
Finding that ease and joy and meaning and balance that can keep us going in the long, over the long haul. And then there's choice, which, and you had mentioned this earlier, that idea of flexibility is a perfect example of this. The autonomy that we want, the volition, the control over the when we work, the where we work, the how we work, greater decision making. And again, all of these things, when we're intentional about it, cultivate learning and growth while we're making contributions to the organization. And then, I don't know if you noticed, they all started with C.
Right.
The last C is climb. There is that climb up the corporate ladder. And there are times in people's careers where that is absolutely the right way they should be growing. The problem with the climb is we have very little control over that, the employee and the manager. And so we wring our hands over what we don't have control over when you've got those other 7 that are actually more interesting to people than the climb. So the research, the way I just spoke it, is the rank order. Contribution was number 1 in aggregate. Climb was dead last. So all of the managers who are working off of that assumption that everybody wants that promotion, it's erroneous.
It's almost like 2 ships passing in the dark.
It is. It absolutely is. And so once the sun, I want to work with your metaphor here. So let's see if I can pull that off. Once the sun comes up and the light of day is there, we can say to managers, look, you've got the power to work with people because contribution, connection, confidence, that's all in your wheelhouse. That's in your control. You and the employee can choose to take action that will help the development of that without systems, processes, approvals, promotions from anybody else.
Well, it's interesting. It would have been interesting to see you do this study 5-10 years ago and then do a comparative analysis now. Because when you think about, I started my career at IBM 35 plus years ago, albeit as a college intern, it was all climbing the ladder. It was all about the climb. And I would even say 5 years ago, and it's really created a disconnect. And I would love your thoughts on this between the leader and the employee, because I think the employee, from certainly what I've learned from you and certainly our own work, is they may not know what they want. They may have lost sight of which C, where did they fall? What's on the top of their list? So how do you go about helping companies address this? Like, what's not so much your methodology, but how do you help companies use this framework, to drive some of the success within the organization as it relates to careers?
So much of it comes down to yet another C, which is conversation. Mm-hmm. I really think this framework gives people the language that they need to have that conversation. Because you're right. In the past, I frequently talk about all we had on the menu was the promotion. So everyone's going to order that up, mm-hmm. right? We now can expand the menu to offer some other really appetizing alternatives. I'm all about playing out metaphors today. Sorry. I've had too much coffee. But we've got an expanded menu to choose from. We've got an expanded vocabulary that gives exactly what you were saying, that gives managers and employees alike the language to be able to start saying, oh, yeah, I felt like I really wanted to feel a greater connection with the organization and to maybe be a little more visible. And maybe I want to learn from this, person over here, but I didn't have the words for that. And that's growth. And when we start labeling those other alternatives, I hate to even use the word alternative because it almost sounds like the other C's are a consolation prize when they're not.
Right.
They're more interesting to people than the climb in many cases. But when we can label them, then we can start to unpack them and find ways to make it happen in the organization.
Very cool. So how does someone get a hold of you?
My website is juliewinklegiulioni.com. More vowels and consonants there. So I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes. And there's lots of information there. Folks can get a sample chapter of the book. And we also have a really interesting self-assessment that's completely complimentary, where folks can get a sense of which of these dimensions are most interesting to them.
When does the book come out?
March 8.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for doing this, Julie. It's been a long time. We've known each other for a little bit, but I really appreciate you finally getting on the show, which is probably more on my end. But I find this fascinating because even though we're in different parts of the industry, we really fuel each other in terms of what we both do. It's really cool what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And Tim, what a fan I've been of yours for some time. So it is a joy to be with you.
Oh, you got to get out more, lady. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And everybody, I would check out Julie's website. Check out that self-assessment. The book is coming out from ATD Press March 8th. Make sure you get the book. It's going to be a great read. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21 day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.